Bryson. And KC, good morning to you. How are you feeling this morning?
Doing well. How you guys doing?
Doing well.
Yeah, I mean, you were up late and you had a lot to deal with. I'm just curious, did anything really surprise you? It felt like, the basketball god smiled upon the Bulls and gave them the right player. And with the number 4 pick, number 15 pick, you had that name. You understood Mr. Swain was on the way before the draft even got going. I thought I saw you saying that before the pick was taken.
Yeah, I just heard he was one of the names they were potentially interested or likely interested in at 15. I started to hear that from some other teams the day before the draft. Heard it a little more strongly the day of the draft, and he wasn't only coveted by the Bulls. I'm told a couple other teams were in on him as well. So I think as far as the overall draft, I think we learned a little bit about Bryson Graham because, with his comments to us afterward, he acknowledged, this roster doesn't, that it still lacks shooting, but he's still going to draft the people that fit, his profile that are on the board ranked highest. I mean, neither Caleb Wilson or Dalen Swain, would be cited with shooting as one of their strengths. So he feels confident still in the pick and that he can address shooting in other ways. So he stuck to his philosophy that he told us when they moved up in the draft lottery, that they're going to take best player available and not draft for need.
So Caleb Wilson is a confident young man, and the power of his personality is something a lot of people who have watched him in North Carolina, have known him for a while, referred to. What was the biggest impression he made in speaking to the Chicago media for the first time last night?
Yeah, I mean, just that. And I saw a glimpse of that the one time I talked to him in a scrum at the Combine, too. I mean, the way I've described him is colorful, confident, and charismatic. But I've also heard from people that know him pretty well, one with from the Bulls, from the draft process, and one outside the Bulls, that he's an incredibly self-aware kid too. And you saw a brief video snippet that the Bulls released on their social media channel last night where he was talking to Tiago, and Tiago said, "Enjoy the night, but are you ready to work?" He goes, "Yes, sir." I mean, he's about the work. He said he obviously wants to be great. I think the other big takeaway I would say is, he's really embracing kind of being on the ground floor of this rebuild, and he wants to be here. He's excited to be here. He's excited to try to help restore the franchise back to greater heights. And, he kind of feels like he's part of the project and embracing like all that comes with it, on the court, off the court. That's kind of my takeaway. I mean, I haven't, gone in depth with him on that, but that's my sense. Just leading up to the draft, he seemed very comfortable coming to the Bulls, and last night, he reiterated that.
There were a ton of kind of wild rumors floating around about the Bulls maybe making a trade or maybe doing something a little dramatic on the night, but they did exactly what they said they were going to do. They kind of stayed with their philosophy. The slap thing was accurate for both the players they took, and they weren't overly concerned about the shooting, as we mentioned. And both of these guys should be able to help improve their defense.
Yeah, as far as the trading, I mean, here's a news flash. The Bulls aren't exactly rife with assets. So, I mean, it's like, you heard, again, at that introductory news conference of Bryson Graham, him talking about building a solid foundation for sustained success and layering this. And I just didn't see him being a guy that was going to start trying to accelerate the process. He sounds very confident in his process, in his drafting philosophy, in his staff. And this was a deep enough draft where, unless you absolutely had to have a guy that you need to move up a couple spots or a certain number of spots to get, that there was going to probably be a guy you liked at 15, and that turned out to be the case. In fact, I've told there were a couple people on their board that they still liked at 15, but that Swain was the clear consensus. In fact, there was some worry that he might be gone, but when he was available, there was a lot of excitement in the room.
So Dalen Swain at Texas was the only Power 5 player, I believe, to lead his team in every category, so his versatility speaks for itself. Did he go higher than maybe some people expected, KC? I know there are a lot of mock drafts out there. There are really no questions about how well-rounded he is, but did it catch you off guard at all that he went where he did, given the fact there were other guys, shooters, like the Baylor shooter, Carr still on the board, other maybe shooters out there, but yet they went with Dailyn Swain?
It would have surprised me if I hadn't heard his name start to bubble and be linked to the Bulls, the day before the draft, because you're right, I hadn't seen him mocked anywhere as high as 15. I can tell you that I saw Carr mocked with the Bulls a lot, and I reported this on Chicago Sports Network last night. I never got the sense the Bulls were interested in him, and I never heard his name linked to the Bulls. That's not to say I know everything, but that's just the intel I had. And then, so as far as, him going higher, I just go back to, and look, this is a crapshoot, right? I mean, they're drafting kids. So right. I'm not saying this is going to work, but what I would say is what I go by more is what teams I had heard that were interested in him. And some of the teams I heard that are interested in him have a pretty good drafting history. So that tells me more about, mock drafts or where people project him to go. Not to say it's going to be a hit, but, it sounds like he was coveted by some pretty respected organizations, and the Bulls obviously were fortunate, or felt fortunate, to get him at 15.
So, KC, they've got 2 picks tonight. The NBA, in its infinite wisdom, has stretched this thing out for a couple of nights, and they'll pick 2 more players. Unlike other drafts, it would appear they're not positionally motivated. In other words, they're not looking for a particular position. They're looking for a particular type of player, a guy with size and length and athleticism and physicality, etc. Do you expect that to hold up tonight? Is that just more of the same, or do you think that you take different types of chances when you get to sort of the very thin portion of the program?
Maybe add a S to the acronym and have the second S stand for shooter. Because
there you go.
Slaps.
That's what we're wondering.
He had some fun with that, Bryson, post draft in this news conference with us. Just talking about how I know there's people out there saying, "Where is the shooting?" And my follow up, and it was followed up by Joel Lorenzi of The Athletic, is where is the shooting? It's like they got to get some shooting at some point, because the way I see it, you got a pretty gummed up half court right now. I mean, Caleb Wilson is a paint guy and around the rim guy, and Claxton's a lob threat, and Swain is when he finally made an offensive mark in college, it was driving to the rim and getting to the line a lot and slashing. So got to get some shooting, and I assume they're going to address that via trade or free agency here moving forward. Maybe you take a flyer there at 38. 56, your expectations are pretty low. 38, you got a chance for a young rebuilding team to add a guy that might be back end rotational guy. So maybe they go for shooting there. We'll see tonight.
We haven't talked to you since they made the first trade of the Bryson Graham era, and getting Nick Claxton in that 3-team deal. What did you think that said about his, is it similar to what his approach last night? I guess he fit the profile. Also, how much did Claxton's past with Tiago Splitter factor into that decision?
I haven't asked anybody that yet. I just obviously threw it out there because, that was when Claxton was really kind of rising in the league in terms of stature, and spent 4 seasons with him. And we've heard Tiago working closely with big men. I've since talked to somebody from Brooklyn who said that he worked with him directly, so that's a good sign. So I mean, obviously there's familiarity there. Yeah, I like the move. I saw some people talking about Claxton really not playing as well the last couple of years, and I guess there are some back injury concerns that are legit, that might have contributed to his lack of rim protection or rebounding numbers dropping. My take is he's going to be in a better point guard situation. He's going to be in a better competitive situation because the Nets were actively trying to lose. And he's only 27, and he's not the long-term answer. I mean, he's on a 2-year flyer, and between he and Jalen Smith, those two can kind of man the center position for now. And to me, next season's about developing the 2 first-round picks, developing Modest Buzelis, seeing what you have in Noah Senge, and making sure you don't finish in the bottom 3 because of the draft lottery reform, because that would hurt your odds. So I don't see how Claxton impacts any of those. That's just my take on it.
Were you surprised that they did not get any draft assets along with him? I mean, it only cost them money, but they had a ton of money available, and there was just sort of this sense that they were going to use that money to eat a bad contract and maybe pick up a pick or two.
Well, they still can. I mean, they've got $30 million, right? So, I mean, that's still in play. I don't know. I guess everybody would have an opinion on that. I haven't spent a lot of thought on that. Okay. I mean, I think Nick Claxton is, again, to me, he and Jalen Smith form a serviceable combo at center for me, for what I envision the Bulls to be next year. I don't have high expectations for the Bulls in terms of, win-loss record. I have high expectations in terms of standard of play, style of play, and growth and development of young players. That's where my focus is. So I don't see, I think a season or two of Nick Claxton and Jalen Smith is fine for where the Bulls are going to be the next 2 years. They're not trying to win a championship next year. So I didn't really get haggled down in draft compensation. I just focused on the player. And yes, he has not played as well the last couple of years. And maybe it won't work out, but I think it's a pretty cheap flyer. That's my take on it.
Most importantly, Casey, have you discussed yet with Caleb Wilson your offer to teach him how to play the guitar?
Well, I shouldn't be teaching anybody how to play the guitar because I'm still trying to master a very difficult instrument. But I am excited to talk to him about music because he threw it out there that he's trying to learn how to play the guitar, which has become a daily passion of mine, and likes to listen to the Beatles. And if you like to listen to the Beatles, then you've got a very strong foundation in my musical opinion. So let's see where this goes. I envision some convos with him about music. He seems like a very, like I said before, charismatic guy. Seems like a guy you can talk to about a lot of things. I think his energy is going to be really important to where the Bulls are going to be next year. It just, I've said this before, there just kind of feels obviously a different energy from the changes, but also the youth. I mean, Bryson is 39, Thiago's 41. That's young for their roles.
Right.
And then, now you throw in these coveted first round picks that are young, especially with Caleb being, 19, and there's an energy in the building. And I think Caleb's really going to fit into where the Bulls are, what the Bulls are trying to establish moving forward.